Welcome to another exciting episode of Growth Leaders. Today, we have the honor of hosting a true visionary and entrepreneur, Mr. Blaine Volas, the co-founder of Cast Magic and co-host of DTC Pod. Cast Magic, an AI tool revolutionizing the industry by converting long-form audio such as podcasts into ready-to-use content with unparalleled precision. Blaine spearheads the development of this bootstrapped AI startup to profitability in less than a year, all with a lean and dedicated team. With success from previous startups under his belt, Blaine brings a wealth of experience to the table. Join us as we delve into the journey of Blaine Volas and explore how he's poised to change the game for content creators and podcasters worldwide. Blaine, most welcome to the show.
Peter, thanks so much for having me on.
That's great. And I'm going to dive back because when I looked, myself, I'm a little bit of a sport addict and so on. And I understand you have a pretty impressive background in sports too. So what's your background? And what I'm looking for also understand, what has sports meant to you now where you are today?
Well, it's actually funny you bring that up. I was a minute or two late to the podcast today because I just got back from the track. But I'm originally from Southern California. I grew up being a pretty competitive track and field athlete. I was one of the best long jumper and triple jumpers in the state of California. I was recruited to Harvard undergraduate to participate on their track and field team. And then, my sports career then kind of got sidelined with a back and knee injury. But, a couple of years out and away from school, I guess 10, I don't want to really date myself, but I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. So, I was actually just coming from the track and doing a fun little workout to try to get in shape because I spend way too many hours in front of the computer.
Are you still doing the triple jump?
No, it's pretty
No,
pretty abusive on the body. So definitely
I could
not
imagine
anymore.
for the knees should be really that. But being competitive person, that of course has impact on other stuff you do. Do you see what has it learned on your way to the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny you mention it. I think there are definitely a lot of parallels between sport and business in terms of like commitment and showing up, discipline, and then also like I don't know, that feeling like when you're in the game, when you're in that competition, it's there's almost a similar thing when you're in the field of like startups and doing business. So like, you get that same adrenaline rush, like you're on and you have to like do everything just the right way. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of parallels. And yeah, I guess we've got a new sport now.
Yeah, and it's like that. You just have to perform. That's really where
Exactly.
it goes. So where you are right now, so what's important in life for you today and tomorrow? What's your dreams? I
Yeah, I guess
mean,
in terms of importance, I think health is a big one. I think when you're young, it's something you like really just take for granted. And as you kind of get a little bit older and mature, you just realize how important it is to, invest in like solid health, whether it's health, it's sleep, it's routine, it's exercise, all of those things. I think our work has kind of fundamentally shifted to the point where, like I was kind of alluding to before, we're in front of computers all day. So I think putting yourself in the right physical environment outside of all the times you doing like the worst thing for your body, which is just like sitting and vegetating. I think it's a really important thing. So, health is a big priority. As well as enjoying what I do and what I work on. I think I've kind of been through the startup mill now. I've had a previous company which was venture backed. We raised hundreds of millions of dollars for it, and through that it's a much different trajectory than when you're bootstrapping a company. And now in Cast Magic, I've partnered with two other friends and co-founders who were in similar boats to me. They each had their own respective venture-backed startups, and we all kind of came together. And rather than, go out and hit the funding trail again, we were like, wait a minute, we can just kind of build at our own pace, build something that we need. We weren't creating kind of like grandiose, unrealistic stories or expectations, and we just started building. I mean, I think one of the funny things about what we're working on now is, like, to this day, we've never put together a PowerPoint or a pitch deck, like, so all that time and energy that typically before
Goes
we
to the
would.
VC.
Yeah, exactly. And why your startup is going to be successful and why it's going to change the world and all of this, and like looking up numbers and stats and telling this crazy story. All of that effort and energy has just gone into building a product that we would use ourselves. Like you mentioned, I do have my own podcast. I actually host two podcasts. One, DTC Pod, which is all about building successful e-commerce businesses, and the other is called Uploading, which is all about how to turn your content into your business. So we just wanted to build a product that worked and served our own goals, and then we wanted to, we're building for ourselves, and then as soon as customers started coming on board, we're building for our customers. So it was just like a different feeling, I guess, than where you're measuring success to like how much money you're raising and can you make it to the next round. This felt a little bit more authentic, and it felt more aligned with the stage of my career that I wanted to be building in.
And I'm going to come back a little bit to that later on, because I think there's so many people, who's interested, understanding how the VC works a little bit, and the bootstrapping, how that doesn't work or that works, and so on. But what you're getting into, before we said, we talked a little bit about the dreams, and also, the basis of this year is really try to always get in the physics, and it is really a lifelong journey. It's not until you lay down for the peace that then you can stop working. But you need to sleep less, and you have the energy in the mornings, and so on and so on. So I'm just highlighting that what you're doing to others, because if you don't do it, get started, take the time, start walking, go to running, and then just take it step by step, because it makes magic with you and your body and your people around you.
Yeah,
I guess that's the same for you.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and I've been in the other boat where, like, kind of when I was building the first company, Seeded, where I kind of prioritized the company over like my body and my personal well-being, and then counterintuitively you're like, I just want to be working on the startup 24/7, like that's it. But counterintuitively, sometimes that's not the best thing to do, and then you end up burning yourself out.
Yeah.
Physical long-term stress, like chronic stress, is a real thing. Like you can be young and still be like subject to massive chronic long-term stress. So it has physical manifestations. It's not good. So yeah, I think putting yourself in an environment where you're working hard, you're disciplined, but at the same time you're not burning yourself into the ground is a super important thing for it.
Have you encountered anything of these things? Where it has been
Yeah. No, I have.
work up. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happened? What
Um,
happened?
I've had like massive like UC flare-ups from it, like, just different ways that like stress manifests physically in the body, that, whether it's anxiety, stress, like physical symptoms, like it's all real. So yeah, I think that's why this time around, really important to prioritize the work, but prioritize the health as well.
So what was your learning lessons on looking to listen to the body? Because that is a learning lesson which I know so many people, it takes too long time to listen to the body, because normally you can feel stress is coming up, and that's where you should put the brake in and say, shit, that's for tomorrow, or whatever priorities you do. But how was that journey for you, that learning lesson?
Yeah, I think I think
When it happens tomorrow, what would you do then?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because sometimes you don't even notice when it's like creeping up on you. And then I think, a lot of people, you'll put things off, you'll procrastinate, and you'll procrastinate when it comes to all sorts of things, including your health. So it's just one of those things that, I don't know, I think you kind of have to go through it yourself because, like, sure, I can tell you
Mm,
that, hey, prioritize your health, do this, do that. But like, I think
mm,
people learn best when they go through something. So my advice would be like, when you notice that, like, then you could think back to a
mm,
conversation like this. But I mean, it's like the same thing. My dad is a physician. He would tell me all these things, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever, right? So
yeah,
I just think it's like,
exactly.
people learn the best when you internalize and you have an
Mm.
experience like that yourself. So I'm putting it out there,
But
but
that's the hard time of life. Sure,
yeah.
that's to go through that. So let's jump in a little bit into the business side, because you've done something which not too many people have done. You're becoming a serial entrepreneur. Well, how would you describe? First, is really how did you get in contact with VC, venture guys, venture capital? Was that people you knew, or how do you do that when you started your first, the seated company?
Yeah, so the first thing we did, was when we had the idea for the company, I think we tried to talk to a couple VCs. Well, the first thing we did was we got the first people to like bet on us, I guess, were lawyers, right? So like when you're incorporating a company, sometimes you want to work with lawyers. We were on, Harvard's campuses, and we met this guy Michael Bookman, who worked for this firm at the time, Latham and Watkins, and we told him about our idea that we were like working on this startup. And he was like, "Oh, that's like a great idea." He's like, "Why don't you come? I'll set up I'll set up a meeting with like one of our partners at the firm. He'll get you set up and he'll help you incorporate the company and introduce you to a bunch of VCs." And we're like, "Okay, that sounds great." We're like, "Okay, we don't have any money. How do we do this?" And they're like, "Oh, no
Mm,
problem. We've got deferred sort of financing methods. So like, we know you're a startup, but we think you're going to be able to raise money. So we'll basically do all this stuff for you for free. And then you will, go raise money. And then when you have money, you'll be able to pay us." And we're like, "Okay, sure. That sounds good. We needed help and we're not lawyers. So let's go ahead and do it." So they introduced us to a bunch of VCs. And this was at the time that, there was a bunch of like major successes in consumer social, like Instagram and Snapchat and all of these different things. So we wanted to build the like next like big group chat app. We thought the way like humans communicate in groups, a lot of the communications were, one-to-one platforms. So we wanted to build this like amazing group chat platform. And we started to do it. And then as we were doing it, we needed to raise some money. I think they were looking at us like, these guys are first time entrepreneurs coming right out of college. They haven't like done anything before. So like, we're not gonna put $1 million or $2 million into this business. But being young and naive and super excited, we were like, no, we're doing it. Like, we already started on this. So then we started to raise friends capital from angels, so friends and family who were
okay,
also
yeah.
connected into like VC as well. So we it started with, I think our first check was it was $50,000, and then we raised another one, which was like, $100,000. So, we start putting together these like kind of checks and these angels
Mm,
commitments, and we told the angels, hey, we want to build the next, big social platform. They were on board. Um, and then over time, we continued to build out the company. And then as the venture landscape started to change a little bit, and consumer
mm,
social started to fade and look more for profitability, we were like, we're still young. We haven't really proven ourselves. We don't have massive product market fit by any means, and we're still developing the product. Like, where can this business go to like be something that's like new and different? And we thought the answer to that was integrating uh, like real life experiences with the group chat. So if you're already chatting with the group and like these big groups, you'd be able to like book plans together, things like dinners, workout classes, concerts, events, all of this. So we like integrated the two. Then we
mhm,
realized that, a based on the amount of funding, our track record, and like how complex that business was to run, serving group chat and all of these different verticals that like we weren't going to be able to raise by doing that, like big institutional money. So that's when we decided to completely sunset the group chat side of things, as well as cut out everything that wasn't restaurants. And our app then became Seated, which was a restaurant booking and rewards platform. So massive, massive pivot, but that's kind of what allowed us to like at least simplify our core offering. And, you know, from there, then the business started to take off. We had a very simple core metric that we were tracking, which is like how much revenue are we driving, how many restaurants are we signing up, and you know, how many reservations are we doing. So like it simplified what was like a, you know, very grandiose and great business in theory that would have just taken like a whole ton of capital and like a completely different go to market to scale. But yeah, that was kind of how Seated came to life. And then from there, that story started to like resonate more with like venture investors, and like the growth started to look a lot better. And, you know, we had already locked down partnerships with most of the restaurants in Boston. And by then we started to expand to New York, and like it started catching on in New York. So it became a much more compelling case for
so that is really where things, you know, in the end, you think you are focused in the beginning, but in reality, you're far too wide. And it takes so much realization. Shit, I really need to get down to that very, very, very focused. And that market is normally big enough to start growing as such.
Definitely.
And I guess the VC market, at least for now, has changed also a little bit. So then what you do now with some magic, you're creating cash magic. So how do you see that going with your own capital, bootstrap, generating your own capital? It's another journey. I don't know if it's feeling more satisfying, or, you know, how would you describe that journey in comparison, if you know, see where you actually have to deliver on certain milestones all the time. And of course you have your own milestones here, but you have a little bit more freedom of decisions, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really neat with Cast Magic is just a quick background on what the company does, how it came together, and everything. So,
sure, go ahead.
so basically, as you had kind of alluded to before, we're an all-in-one content workspace where we're able to take any format of media, whether it's video, audio, YouTube videos, podcasts from RSS feeds, like any sort of like multimedia format, and use that as context for AI to generate content out of. So imagine like this podcast interview, you'll be able to pass it through Cast Magic. Magic will transcribe it, and you'll be able to pull out everything and generate, you know, things like written articles, social media, like visual image assets, like anything that you would want as a content creator that you're seeing posted to all these different channels, like you'll be able to generate it using the Cast Magic platform. So we believe it's really unique because you can build your whole context of your own media library and use that as context to generate whatever type of content that you need to publish. So we've seen use cases for this across podcasting, marketing, sales, people who are creating copy on LinkedIn, YouTubers. I even have car dealerships who are like recording their conversations with clients and using it to like generate their follow-up collateral, because we have an app in Cast Magic where you can like tap and record the whole conversation. And then when you record it on mobile, you're able to use like the voice notes or whatever recording functionality, and it syncs instantly with your Cast Magic workspace. So this whole idea of just being able to capture long format dialogue or conversation anywhere it is and use that as context to generate content has been like a huge thing. But the way we came up with the idea, like I said, I was running a podcast, I was doing a bunch of this stuff myself manually. We saw an opportunity with AI. You know, we ran it by a friend who happens to be an absolute you know, amazing CTO, and he said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, I'll build it. So, you know, we started building it, and then you know, we started signing up customers, and customers started to pay. And to date, you know, we have done, you know, we're over $100,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue. You know, we had our first paying customer last year on March 1st, so literally like almost a year ago. today, or by the time this episode is released. And to date, we've done well over $1 million in revenue, probably closer to 1.5 or 1.3, 1.5 already. And again, we raised zero capital to start. The business is profitable, and now we're just thinking about how do we allocate what are the best investments to make, and we're building it from a lens of would I don't know, it feels different. It feels like we're spending our own money, and we're in more control of the business, as opposed to just knowing that we're spending money and then we're going to go out and look for the next raise of cash to put into the business. So it just
you think you will
different.
bring in external investors into it in order to accelerate, or how do you see that? Because sometimes it's necessary, and sometimes if you are on the run and you get it running, it takes a little bit longer time. But on the other side, you're always in control of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to say raising capital is completely bad, right? It helps if you have a good business and you need capital to accelerate it. It's a great accelerant. But I think one of the tricky parts of raising capital is that sometimes when you have the money, you spend the money, and whether you spend it the right way, it remains to be seen. And sometimes, having less capital is a forcing function for you to make better, more strategic decisions and build the business with kind of a stronger core in mind. So because every dollar counts a little bit more and you feel it more. Now it's literally if I every dollar that I spend now, whether I'm investing it for the business or not, it's that dollar is either being distributed into my pocket, or I'm paying for something that I believe is going to be worth more than just taking it and putting it in my pocket right now. So that's kind of having that sort of thinking as you're building a business, I think is really important. And look, that's not to say we'll never take capital, but right now, from what I've seen, we have several VCs who have approached us and are interested in the space and the intersection of content and AI and all this sort of stuff. But for now, I think it's suited us really well. We're figuring out what's working. We're figuring out what's working on the product side, on the go-to-market side, on the scaling side. And I think what's really unique about our team is we've got 3 co-founders, and 3 of us have very different skill sets. We're friends, so we can overlap, but I can very clearly own product, customer experience, life cycle marketing sort of things, whereas my partner Ramon can very clearly own the paid, the partnerships, and that sort of the go to market, and partnerships with creators and influencers, the paid growth. And then the other partner, Justin, is an absolute like I said, just a beast of a CTO, and he can own everything on the technical side. So hiring, coding, everything that happens on the infrastructure side of things.
So what you're addressing right now was something which so many people ask, okay, what are the key ingredients really? If I want to start a company, make a startup, what are the key ingredients? And I think you are into one of the very important ones, but what 3, 4 key ingredients do you see? This is what you really need to have if you're going to make it happen.
Yeah, I think having complementary skill sets and people who get along on a personal level, as well as are able to complement each other, is so important. At our last startup, I think the 3 co-founders there, myself, and the 2 others, our skill sets were very, I wouldn't say they were complementary. We were all serve similar functions. And then through those functions, it was kind of okay, well, we kind of have to divide and conquer. But even though we would divide and conquer, it was our core skill sets were all very close in nature, as opposed to here where it's very clear, they very clearly complement each other. So yeah, I think that's been a big accelerant for this business, where we can spend more time just shipping product and building things, and everyone
that's
can
the
kind of stay
that's
in
the
their lane.
team side. And then what's the next one?
What do you mean? Next one for what?
What's the next ingredient? the team is important here. What are theirs? I guess.
Oh, I mean, the biggest one is the market. Like, I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what team you have. If you're in the wrong market, then, you got to find the right market. I think about startups in a very simple way. It's like you want to pick the right puzzle to work on, and you want to pick the right people to solve the puzzle with. Like, that's it, right?
Mm,
So if you're working on the wrong puzzle, like it doesn't matter how good your team is, because like no one cares about the puzzle that you're solving. And if you're working with the wrong
mm,
people, you could be working with the wrong people on the right puzzle. You guys might solve the puzzle. It could be good. But like
mm.
the best thing, what you're looking for is working on the right puzzle with the right people. And that's the major unlock.
So that's a great insight. So now you've been through one of the growth stages and with previous company, and now you're starting to grow again. Let's touch a little bit about the development of employees and the leadership side, etc. What are your reflections so far? We touched about it a little bit before when we met, but uh, I guess it's either fully intuitive or but also I guess you've seen what works and doesn't work. How do you think about making sure your team really are on top and you get movement? And then of course we know you get up to 20 people, you get to the next step, then 50 people is another step. A little bit your thoughts around leadership.
Yeah, I think for now, our approach to it is I want to stay as lean as possible for as long as possible. So I think oftentimes a lot of startups will hire because they need more body count. It feels like the startup's growing, but every time you hire someone, you're adding in a layer of complexity to the business in a way or another, right? So you need to
Mm,
know that like when you're hiring, that you're giving it to someone who can like really take and own something. You don't want to create more work for yourself. The point of hiring someone is that they can take something and run with it, and you shouldn't be spending more time on it and like pulling your hair out over your hire. Like you're paying them, so it should unlock something. And I think a lot of companies try to scale too fast. They bring on the wrong people. The culture isn't in place. So like I think we're on the bootstrapping side. We're erring in the other direction. We're probably moving
mm,
a little bit slower than we could or would like to, but at the same time we want to like really build systems where it feels like we it's like a hair on fire problem to need to make that next hire, and then we can go ahead and do that. So like I'll give you an example. Right now we're profitable. Like the business is already profitable, so like I could in theory go hire someone else, but like we have a benchmark in mind. Like we have a goal of not adding any more headcount until we get to our next milestone of 150,000 in monthly recurring revenue. So we want the business to basically grow 50% from where it is, and then we'll talk about making our next potential hire. Even though it may be tough, and it would be nice to bring
mm,
some people on right now, we're just kind of like, that's our mental model. It's like, let's get to that next milestone, then we can figure out what we need to unload and unlock. But I think teams would be surprised by how much that you can actually handle by just
mm,
staying focused on the right thing. The other thing that I'd say about leadership startups and everything, it's sometimes like humans are funny, because it's like you like doing things just for the sake of doing things. And sometimes there's only a couple things that are like really important for your startup to like get right and do in any given day or week. Um, and sometimes when you have a lot of people, like everyone's doing a lot of different things, but maybe those things aren't so impactful. So it also becomes kind of a forcing function to like really prioritize like the major initiatives and the most important things that need
mm.
to get done. And that becomes like, hopefully an accelerant.
So how would you then describe the culture you're actually, or you as a team actually are establishing right now? How, if you ask one of your employees here, so how would they describe it, and how does that match what you are doing
I think
intrinsic most likely?
So I think from a culture perspective and what we're trying to do is like, I think, like I mentioned, the three co-founders, we feel like immense ownership over over everything, because it's a problem that like we ourselves had. And it's a problem that, a bunch of our customers have. And I think from a culture point of view, we are we're very community first. And I know that's like a big buzzword, but like our first hire was a head of community, right? So we're very close to the customer. We talk with all our customers. I mean, that's how we're on this podcast right now, right? Like you literally emailed me as a potential customer, and that's how we got to know each other. So I think in terms of like culture, it's like, major ownership. Everyone feels ownership, feels like they're a part of the team. Hierarchy, like we have a flat org structure at the top, which is something I know we've talked about. Like we don't have a CEO at the moment. It's like we have the three co-founders, and we're going to try to ride this out as long as we can. Obviously, at a certain point, you'll probably need, one person steering the ship. But for now, like it's a pretty flat org structure where, I'm willing to take feedback from, and I fully trust our VAs that we're hiring. Like I trust their opinion, just like I can trust, my other teammates' opinion, just like I can trust my co-founder's opinion. So from a culture, everyone has extreme ownership, and everyone is very close to the customer and the community. That's like how I think about culture.
So what I hear here, you talking about this, it feels that you got the fundamentals just right out of the box. It looks spot on, both with the community, and I know you have customer first, and that goes into the development also. What is most important, what gives most value for the customers. And that was my perception actually from the very first time when I spoke to you. Was not a problem. Just let's get it solved. And so you did. So that's great. I would like to thank you, Blaine. It's great having you on on the Growth Leaders podcast. I wish you guys all the best moving forward. And thank you so much for today.
Thanks so much, Peter. It was a blast.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye.